The Lantern in the Faun. A folk horror short story. The road to Myrecross. The bus coughed its way down the single-lane road like it resented every meter. Thomas pressed his forehead to the cold window, watching the landscape flatten into a smear of gray fields and darker hedgerows. February light hung low and colorless, as if the sun had given up trying to warm this part of the country. He hadn't planned to come back. Not to Myrecross. Not to the village where his mother had grown up, where he'd spent 2 uneasy summers as a child, and where the air always smelled faintly of peat and something older. But when the solicitor called about the cottage, his cottage now, he'd felt a tug he couldn't explain, a sense of unfinished business, or maybe just the need to stand somewhere that still remembered his mother. The bus shuddered to a stop beside a leaning signpost. Myrecross, 1 mile. "You're off here," the driver said without looking back. His voice was flat, but there was something else beneath it. Not quite concern, not quite warning. Thomas stepped down into the cold. The bus pulled away immediately, as if eager to leave him behind. The silence that followed was thick enough to feel. He took a breath. The air tasted of damp earth and wood smoke. And beneath that, something metallic. He started walking. The cottage. The cottage sat where he remembered it. Hunched at the edge of the faun, its roof sagging slightly, its stone walls mottled with lichen. The windows were dark, but the key the solicitor had mailed him fit the lock easily. Inside, the air was stale but not unpleasant. Dust motes drifted in the thin light. His mother's things were still here. Her books, her mismatched mugs, the faded quilt she'd sewn herself, felt like stepping into a memory he'd forgotten he had. He set his bag down and walked to the back window. The faun stretched out behind the cottage, a vast expanse of reeds and black water. Even in daylight it looked like a place that swallowed sound. A place that didn't want to be seen. He remembered being 8 years old, standing at this same window watching a pale light drift between the reeds. His mother had pulled him away sharply. "Never follow the lanterns, Tom." He hadn't understood then. He wasn't sure he understood now. A knock at the door made him jump. When he opened it, an elderly woman stood on the step, wrapped in a thick shawl. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. "You're Margaret's boy," she said. Not a question. "Yes, Thomas. I'm Mrs. Hargreaves. I live up the lane." She paused. "You'll be staying long?" "I'm not sure yet." She nodded slowly, as if that confirmed something she'd already suspected. "If you need anything, you come to me. And if you hear anything out on the faun at night, anything at all, you stay inside. Understand?" Thomas blinked. Sure. Thank you." She gave him a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes and walked away, her boots crunching on the gravel. Thomas closed the door, feeling the cottage suddenly smaller. The first night. He spent the afternoon cleaning, airing out rooms, and trying to ignore the sense that the cottage was watching him back. By evening he was exhausted. He made tea, sat by the small fireplace, and let the crackling warmth lull him. At some point he must have drifted off. A sound woke him, a soft, rhythmic tapping. He sat up, heart thudding. The fire had burned low, casting long shadows across the room. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the back door. He stood slowly, every instinct telling him not to go closer. But curiosity tugged harder. When he reached the door, he pressed his ear to the wood. Silence. Then tap. He swallowed. "Hello." No answer. He unlatched the door and opened it a crack. Cold air rushed in. The faun lay silent and dark. No one there. He stepped outside, just enough to look around. That was when he saw it. A faint light, hovering low among the reeds. Pale. Flickering. Moving slowly, as if carried by an unseen hand. A lantern. His breath caught. "Never follow the lanterns, Tom." He stepped back inside and shut the door firmly. The tapping did not return. But long after he went to bed, he could still see the pale glow drifting through the dark. The villagers. The next morning he walked into the village. Myrecross was smaller than he remembered. Just a handful of cottages, a church with a leaning steeple, and a pub called the Marshlight. Inside, the pub was dim and warm. A few locals sat hunched over pints, their conversations dying as he entered. The bartender, a broad-shouldered man with a graying beard, gave him a nod. "You'll be Margaret's lad." Thomas managed a smile. Word travels fast. In a place like this, it doesn't have far to go. The man poured him a pint without asking. "Name's Calder." Thomas took the drink. "Thanks. I'm just here to sort out the cottage." Calder's expression tightened. Shame about your mum. She was a good woman." "Thank you." One of the men at a nearby table spoke up. "You staying out by the phone?" Thomas nodded. The man exchanged a look with his companions. "Best keep your curtains shut at night." Calder shot him a warning glance. "Leave it." Thomas frowned. "I heard something last night, and saw a light." The pub went very still. Calder leaned in. "Listen to me. The fun has its ways. Old ways. You don't go out after dark. You don't answer knocks you didn't expect. And you don't follow lights." "What are they?" Calder hesitated. "Some say spirits. Some say worse. But whatever they are, they're not for us." Thomas swallowed. "My mother used to warn me about them." Calder said softly. She knew. Before Thomas could ask more, the door opened and Mrs. Hargreaves entered. She spotted him immediately. "You shouldn't be talking about such things," she said sharply. "Not to him." Calder raised his hands. "Just giving advice. Advice won't save him." Thomas stared. "Save me from what?" Mrs. Hargreaves looked at him with something like pity. "From the fun," she said. "It remembers blood." The journal. Back at the cottage, Thomas searched through his mother's things. He didn't know what he was looking for until he found it. A small leather-bound journal tucked behind a row of books. His mother's handwriting filled the pages. Neat, looping, familiar. He sat at the kitchen table and began to read. Most entries were mundane. Weather notes, gardening plans, memories of him as a child. But then, halfway through, the tone shifted. "The lanterns were out again last night. Closer this time. I heard them whispering through the reeds. I fear they know I'm alone now." Thomas's skin prickled. Another entry. "They want something. They always have. The village pretends otherwise, but we all know the stories. The fun takes what it is owed. I pray it never comes for my son." He closed the journal, heart pounding. What had she meant? What did the fun want? The second night. That evening, fog rolled in thick and heavy. The cottage felt cut off from the world, floating in a sea of white. Thomas tried to distract himself. Made dinner, read, paced. But the silence pressed in from all sides. Then the tapping began. Soft, insistent. He froze. Tap, tap, tap. This time it came from the window. He forced himself to look. A pale face stared back at him through the glass. He stumbled backward, breath catching in his throat. The face was gaunt, its skin grayish, its eyes hollow. Its mouth moved soundlessly, forming shapes he couldn't understand. Then it lifted a hand and tapped again. Tap. Thomas blinked, and the face was gone. He ran to the window, but there was nothing outside, only fog, and a faint glow moving through it. The lantern. He backed away slowly, pulse hammering. The glow drifted closer. He shut the curtains and didn't sleep at all. The elder. The next morning he went straight to Mrs. Hargreaves's cottage. She answered before he knocked twice. "You saw it," she said. He nodded. She sighed and motioned him inside. Her home was cluttered with dried herbs, old books, and jars filled with things he didn't want to identify. "You should have left after the first night," she said. "I need answers." She studied him for a long moment. "Your mother tried to keep you away from this place. She knew the fun had marked your family." "Why?" "Because of your grandfather." Thomas frowned. "I never met him." "No. He died before you were born. But he made a bargain with the fun. A foolish one." "What kind of bargain?" Mrs. Hargreaves hesitated. He asked for prosperity, for the land to be fertile again, for the village to survive the lean years. And the Faun agreed? In its way, but the Faun always takes payment. Thomas felt cold. What did it take? Mrs. Hargreaves looked at him with sad eyes. Your mother. He stared at her. She didn't die because of the Faun, didn't she? Mrs. Hargreaves whispered. She left this village, but the Faun never forgot. It waits. It watches. And now that she's gone, it looks to the next of her blood. Thomas felt the room tilt. No, he said. That's superstition. Mrs. Hargreaves shook her head. You saw the lantern. You heard the knocking. The Faun is calling you. He stood abruptly. I'm leaving. You won't get far, she said softly. Not while it wants you. The Faun calls. He packed his bag as soon as he returned to the cottage. Clothes, documents, the journal. He didn't care about the rest. He stepped outside and stopped. The fog was thicker than before, swirling around him like living smoke. The road was gone. The village was gone. Only the Faun remained. A faint glow appeared in the distance. Then another, and another. Lanterns. Dozens of them. They drifted toward him, weaving through the fog like pale fireflies. Thomas backed away, but the cottage door slammed shut behind him. He grabbed the handle. It wouldn't budge. The lanterns drew closer. He could hear whispers now, soft, sibilant, layered. They seemed to come from the reeds, from the fog, from inside his own skull. Thomas, he spun around. No, Thomas, come home. He stumbled backward, feet sinking into the damp earth. The lanterns formed a circle around him, their pale light flickering. Shapes emerged from the fog, figures with hollow eyes and gray skin. The same face he'd seen at the window, and others, dozens of them. The dead of Myrecross, the ones the Faun had taken. They reached out with long, thin fingers. Thomas tried to run, but the ground beneath him gave way. He fell to his knees in cold water. The whispers grew louder. Blood for blood. Ode for ode. He felt something wrap around his ankle, slick, strong. A root? A hand? He screamed as it pulled him down. The lanterns flared bright. The water closed over his head. The morning after. When the fog lifted, the cottage stood silent. Mrs. Hargreaves approached slowly, leaning on her cane. She pushed open the door. The rooms were empty. She sighed. Calder joined her a moment later. Another one? She nodded. The Faun took him. Calder removed his cap. Shame. But it was always going to. Mrs. Hargreaves looked out toward the reeds. The debt is paid. For now. Calder grunted. Until the Faun hungers again. She closed the door gently. It always does. The lantern returns. That night, as the villagers shuttered their windows and barred their doors, a pale light drifted through the reeds. Soft, flickering, patient. A lantern, waiting for the next name the Faun would whisper, waiting for the next debt to be collected.